Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. So this video is going to be about how do we say it? Blood cells. You can say this is a kids friendly video. You can even say like even adults can watch it, but most likely the terms, the words I'm going to use, it's going to be very simple and very basic knowledge which every child should know, at least in this era. So let's start. As our topic is blood components, let's write it down. Blood components. Now, what do we mean by blood components? Blood components is what is present inside our blood. Most likely, everyone by now knows there is something called RBC, red blood cell, and there is something called WBC, white blood cell, and the last, there is something called platelets. And the way we have learned in school in our early time, that is, red blood cell is something which is red in color, is mainly responsible for oxygen. White blood cell, they fight the foreign bodies in our body. Platelet is something which basically when we get hurt, it forms a brownish layer. That is what is platelet. So platelet is basically the one or when all the cells come together and they form a layer where there is bleeding. So it stops the bleeding basically. So that is the very simple way to say what is RBC, WBC, platelets. But in this video, I'll be going little bit in depth. I will be trying to use small new vocabulary words which can help at least a child or at least an adult to know like what is basically happening in the hospital, what is basically happening when certain things are getting checked. So this is going to be a first part of such kind of video. So let's proceed. So as we just said, we are going to do blood components. Now in blood components, let me use the typing handwriting. Okay. So in blood components, we have whole blood. Whole blood. What do we mean by whole blood? Let me show you a picture from here. I will explain more in depth. Whole blood is this middle tube which we can see over here. This one. It is not separated. It is still just like how it was collected by the phlebotomist from our arm. It's just that whole blood. It's just a whole blood. Nothing else. Now we know that this is just whole blood. Okay. So we will learn about whole blood. Then we will learn about RBC. RBC. Full form of RBC would be red blood cell. I think you already know this one. RBC is red blood cell. Then we have WBC, which is white blood cell. Now this white blood cell, or you can call it as kind of a buffy coat, or we can say like this particular WBC actually is not how it is exactly, like it's not white in color. When we use the blood which we collect, run it through a centrifuge. Yeah, let me tell you this one also. So we have collected the blood, let's say. This is the tube. I'm sorry, it is a very disoriented tube. So this is the blood collected. Okay, done. Now I am going to, so I as a phlebotomist, I have collected your blood. After this, what am I going to do? I am going to send it to the lab. Again, after I collect blood, when I collect blood from you, I have to also be sure like what tube I am collecting it. I will explain you a tube as well eventually. But yeah, I have to know like what tube am I collecting it with. What tube is it? What is the purpose of the tube is also very important. You must have seen like when you go for blood collection, no matter who it is, even if it's a kid, even if it's an adult, you must have seen like there are different kinds of tubes. Many different colors of tubes. Each tube have a function. Each tube is for a reason. That's why you will say like, oh, I have been collected 3 bottles of blood, 4 bottles or 4 tubes of blood. So and so we exaggerate sometimes, right? But why is it collected? What is the purpose of it? That I will cover it up in the next video. For now, it's just a small brief idea about blood components. So I will just let you know now. I think that's better. This is called lavender tube. Let me show you a picture about it. Yeah. Sorry for the blurry kind of picture. So you can see it's a purple tube. You must have seen it many times. We call it purple, but in our hospitals and stuff, we call it lavender tube. Lavender tube, why it is mainly used? It is mainly used for complete blood count. Complete blood count. Whatever is there in our blood is getting counted in this particular collection of tube. So lavender is mainly for CBC. We call it in short CBC. CBC means complete blood count. Okay, let's keep it aside for now. So yeah, we are collecting the blood in a lavender tube. Let's say we are doing a test called CBC, complete blood count. Complete blood count gives us a whole idea about, not a whole idea, you can say a brief idea about the body, like what is going on with the body. Whether the patient have an infection, whether there is a inflammation, whether there is something wrong with the patient. Like you can easily tell a patient is anemic by looking at the blood cell. Basically the CBC count. So CBC count is the very first or most important test which is done for no matter whoever comes to the hospital. Whatever test we are going to give, CBC should be one of them, to understand like what is the issue with the patient. So CBC is a very brief indicator of what can be wrong with the patient. So that is complete blood count. So we are collecting now, let's say, the blood in a lavender tube. Done. Now we have something called a centrifuge. I will explain the centrifuge, how it works and all. It is like in depth, but not now. Now I'm just going to tell what it is and like what is done in it. So this is, let's say this is a centrifuge. Okay. We put the test tube inside it and we have to make sure we are balancing the test tubes. I will show it to you in the next video. Okay, so we have this centrifuge. It is basically like a washing machine, but washing machine goes in a very minimum speed, right? This centrifuge, it goes in very high, super Ferrari kind of speed. So this centrifuge, what it does is it takes this whole blood. So we kept this blood inside this. Now this blood is going to get segregated in levels higher, as we already know from our basic science that the heavier particles, they settle down, the lighter particles, they float upwards. So let's say, so heavier particles settles down, the lighter particles floats upwards. Just like an example of oil and water. Yeah, think of it as oil and water. Oil is heavier particles, so oil have heavier particles like fatty compounds. It will go under, it will settle. Water, as it is very lighter material, low density, you can say it floats upwards. Okay, so now same for the blood. What happens is, now after the centrifuge, so let's erase this part. After the centrifuge, what happens? Now in the centrifuge, obviously it got into different parts. We will see what parts. So what was the job of centrifuge again? The job of centrifuge was to segregate the blood, to separate the blood in different levels, in different compounds, which components, let's say components, as that's our topic, components. So what is it? Let's see. Let me take a good picture, I believe. Yeah, let me show you this one. So as I was saying, this is the whole blood. Now this blood, when it went to centrifuge, it got into few segregations over here. You can see the heavier particle is red blood cell. Let me zoom into it. Red blood cell is the heavier particle. Red blood cell means what? Red blood cell means something which have hemoglobin. In short, you can say HB. So what is hemoglobin again? Hemoglobin is a protein, or you can say it is a pigment which gives color to our red blood cells. So hemoglobin, which is our HB, which is our protein, what does it do? It also carries it carries. The main job of hemoglobin is it carries oxygen. We always say this one thing, right? deoxygenated blood and oxygenated blood. We kind of, I think we have, if you are a grade 7 8 student, grade 6 and above student, you will know what is oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. But let's say in our body we have two kind of blood. We have something called blood with oxygen, and we have something called blood with carbon dioxide. Now from where did this carbon dioxide come? Carbon dioxide came from when we breathe in. When we breathe in, we don't only breathe oxygen. There is so many things in our atmosphere. There is nitrogen, there is other kind of compounds, there is oxygen, there is CO2, carbon dioxide. So when we are breathing in, we are taking in all the gases basically present in our atmosphere. So in our lungs, the lung is doing the main job where the oxygen and the carbon dioxide is getting separated. So the blood which gets oxygen is called oxygenated blood. The blood which still did not get the oxygen from the lungs, they will be called as deoxygenated or blood without oxygen. Let's say it in simple words, blood without oxygen. Okay, so now hemoglobin job is what? It carries oxygen throughout our body. So basically our body needs oxygen, our blood needs oxygen. If our blood have oxygen, that means we have oxygen. So hemoglobin is the one which carries oxygen, and this red blood cell plays an important role for what? Carrying oxygen. Okay, so we understood that part. So this red blood cell, this guy, it have hemoglobin. Hemoglobin carries oxygen. Okay. Then comes this Buffy coat. We will explain more in detail about this also. There is something called a Buffy coat. And then there is something called plasma, yellowish, oilish kind of color, plasma. You can see similar to this kind of color. This is plasma. And when we are trying to separate them, so like right now I have this blood, I have these three segregations. Now let's say from this one tube, I am separating everything. So I have already separated RBC. Now I am separating the Buffy coat, let's say. But before separating the Buffy coat or RBC, first what I have to remove? The yellow part, which is our plasma. So first I will remove plasma in one tube. I will remove Buffy coat in the other tube, RBC in the other tube. So in three tubes now we have three different things. Okay, so RBC we already know the function. Buffy coat I will show you in a while. But plasma, let me tell you. Plasma is the liquid portion. So let me take a very clear picture. Okay, so let me take this one. We already understood what is our red blood cell. So now when I am explaining Buffy coat, just keep it aside for now. We will go with the bigger portions. Plasma. What is plasma? Plasma have proteins, ions, water, nutrients, waste, gas. Okay, let's make it into short. Whatever we eat, whatever is digested, whatever is taken from the food goes where? Gets fused or gets mixed up or dissolved where? In the plasma. So plasma, that's why you will see the word protein. Where do we get protein from? We get protein from meat, we get protein from milk, we get protein from eggs, we get protein. So that protein, we say like, okay, yeah, eat protein rich food, eat fiber rich food. So where are this nutrients kind of things getting dissolved or like, mixed up? It's in the plasma of the blood. So in the plasma, what all things we have? Proteins, ions, water, nutrients, waste, and gases. So gases like all the other carbon dioxide gas, whatever it is, and waste. So in our body obviously there will be waste produced, not the waste we excrete out, but there are other kind of waste like metabolic waste. So this metabolic waste, we call it metabolic waste. Metabolic means what? The waste secreted like small fluids. You can say when something is it's like our liver is working, our stomach is working, so after doing their work there is some kind of waste. So that waste Then whatever nutrients we eat, ions is what? Ions is like the positive ion and the negative ion. So positive is like whatever, basically ions is something which because of which you can say we have electrical charges in our body. That's the one of the reason why if we are not wearing plastic slippers, we can get electrocuted, that is we can get the electric shock. So ions is there. We will see this in more in depth later. You can comment if you want more. So proteins, what is proteins? Proteins is something what we are eating, and this all are getting, even water. So all of this are getting collected where? In the plasma. And this plasma guy, it also have very important part, which is platelets, which we discussed kind of in the beginning. I think in this picture it was. So when you separate the plasma, right, in a different tube, and if you run it through the centrifuge again, centrifuge is that washing machine, okay, the Ferrari speed washing machine, more than Ferrari speed washing machine, okay. So this platelets are getting settled here. That's when you can see platelets, or else platelets is so well mixed with the plasma that you can't see it. What does the platelets do now? Okay, before that, what is plasma? Plasma is again the liquid portion of the blood with proteins like albumin, coagulation. I think that word will be too much for you guys. We can say it is, plasma is something which is a liquid portion of the blood, and it have many things in it. And mainly, I can remember ions, proteins. Let me show that picture again, so we are clear that we are not talking blindly. Proteins, ions, water, nutrient, waste, and gases. Okay, done. So now in this we have platelets. So platelets does what? Platelets is the reason why bleeding can stop. There are few patients, not few, actually it is now getting a bit common, not very common but kind of. There are patients who don't have enough platelets in their body, because of which if they get a cut, they'll keep on bleeding, and such that the blood in their body will run out, and they need blood transfusion. What is blood transfusion? Like putting extra blood into the body, if it matches to the blood of the person who lost so much blood. So platelet is something which plays a very important role in our life. Platelet is the reason why if we get a cut, within a minute the bleeding stops. Even less than a minute sometimes the bleeding stops. How does it stop? Because of the platelet. So platelets are like this, like small. So let's say this is my arm. This is where I got the bleeding, here. So this platelets, I'm just drawing too many. So this platelet, they come all together like this in this bleeding area. What is it doing? It is not allowing the RBC or the blood or the whole blood cell, whatever you want to call it right now, blood basically, I'll call it blood for now. This blood, it will not allow it to escape. It is making it coagulated. This is what is called coagulation. Okay, so here platelets, what is it doing? It is coming together. They are coming together, they are forming a clot. So when I bring all the cells together, it makes a clot. And because of which you will see, like in our arm there is bleeding, and after some time you will see it became, do I have a brown color here? No, I'll use orange for now. It becomes kind of like brownish color over here. It leaves a scar. I mean, if it is a deep cut, it is a scar. If it is not a deep cut, it's just a scar for a few days and then it goes off. So that brownish layer, how does it come? Because of platelets. So now we got a whole idea, like what is our blood components. Let's give it a one final review. So we have gone through, oh wait, let me do Buffy coat. We have Buffy coat still, right? Okay. Buffy coat is basically nothing more than white blood cell. So in Buffy code, you can even find some platelets in Buffy code also. So in Buffy code, what do we see? In Buffy code, we see white blood cells. We can see few platelets there. We can see few platelets even in the plasma. But mainly we see it in the plasma. Okay. Now let's make it into a review session. We have blood components, we have something called WBC, white blood cells, we have something called RBC, red blood cell, and RBC have hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is the reason why our blood cells have red color, and also it is the reason how oxygen is carried in our body. So how is oxygen traveling in our body? Because this red blood cell have a protein called hemoglobin, which carries oxygen O2. Sorry for the different color, let me draw it again. This is our red blood cell, disc shape. It have hemoglobin, it have oxygen which it carries. It carries oxygen, by the way. It carries oxygen, and then what happens? It is now traveling around the body. So it's not one blood cell, it's too many, like millions of blood cells. Okay. Then comes WBC, white blood cell, which is basically the Buffy code as I mentioned before. So yeah, this Buffy code guy. It have platelets. So mainly platelets is supposed to be with the white blood cell. Platelets can also be there with the plasma. So this is just a basic information. We will know in depth when we go in higher grades, obviously. So yeah, white blood cell, it have platelets. Even in plasma also we'll see a very few amount of platelets, or at least some platelets there. And mainly plasma have what? Proteins, ions, water, so and so. So one more thing what I said was blood is CBC. CBC, complete blood cell count. Where do we see complete blood cell count? Which tube do we see it getting collected? That is the lavender tube. Lavender tube is mainly used for CBC, complete blood count. And in this complete blood count, we can know in how many numbers. In numbers, yeah. How many numbers is RBC present? How many numbers WBC is present? How many numbers platelets are present? How big the red blood cells are in the body, how small the red blood cells are in the body, how much volume of red blood cell is there in the body, how much less volume of red blood cells are in the body. So basically the CBC is like a complete idea about the whole blood. Okay. I think yeah, I have explained pretty much everything. One more thing I did not tell you was, yeah, this is just a brief idea only. It's just for you to understand, like, when is this lavender tube collected. So lavender tube is also called EDTA. There is a full form to it, but let's for now call it lavender tube or EDTA tube. EDTA tube is for if you are very old in the sense, if you are in grade 9, 10, 11, 12, you can remember this. So EDTA tube and lavender if you are under grade 7. So lavender tube or EDTA tube is collected after all these tubes. So basically if we are having some kind of diagnosis, we can say, and we want to check certain things, so before to get all those things checked, we will do certain tubes which will be collected first. So out of them there is like blue tube is collected first, then after that the red or the gold tube, or you can say it now yellow tube because it looks like yellow here, it's gold tube we call it. So gold tube, then the green, dark green tube is collected, and like towards the ending step, second last or last, second last, we can say second last is when the lavender tube is collected, which basically is for CBC. Also there is a reason why certain tubes are collected first and why lavender tube is collected at the ending. There is too much into this, like so much details are there which we can know. So next time when you go to a phlebotomist, observe what is happening, how they are taking blood, how they are like how do I say, what tubes they are collecting first, when are they collecting the lavender tube. Also if you notice in the phlebotomist room, you might see certain posters like order of draw. Order of draw is which tube should be collected first, which tube should be collected second, third, fourth, and so on. So this one, what you just saw, my English, okay. What you just saw is basically the order of draw. Like blue is collected first, then yellow, red, then green, then towards the ending, the ADT or the lavender tube. So I guess, yeah, we have pretty much understood what are blood components, and I hope you guys can do it also. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to let me know what more you want to watch, and as this is somewhere where I belong, this is my field, I think I will post more about this also. It will help me to remember what all things I have learned over the years. So yeah, all the best everyone, and thank you for watching.